Think we're live. Just waiting for everything to pick up. I think we're live. Yeah, we are. All right. Welcome. Happy Monday. It is day 5 of the Foundational Things Find What You're Looking For series. And off to a little bit of a shaky start with managing some of the nuances of live streaming. I understand why there are people out there who do this that have a second or a third person with them to manage all the different things. But I am happy to be here with you today, whether you're live and hopping on in the next few moments or you're watching this later. Either way, I am glad that you are here. I'm glad to have you. And today is going to be hopefully easing us into the week with some neat things that we can do with our settings so that we can search better and do it in the way that we want to do it, because everyone has their preferences. Everybody has the way that they like to do things, and the things that they want to see, the way they want to see them. So yeah, that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to have some fun with that. So without any further ado, let's just dive in. And just a quick recap. This is a free 9-day live series exploring the ins and outs of internet searching. Being on day 5, we've already gone through some basics and a little bit of the nitty gritty around search operators and searching and how to use search operators, take on a different strategy. And now we're in the middle 3 sessions. On Friday, today, and tomorrow, we're looking more in a more focused way at using the settings and customizations of the search engines themselves, of the web browsers that we use, and then some other little miscellaneous things that may pop in, that may just have an opportunity to slide in to maybe reinforce something that has already been covered in the series and some earlier sessions, or something that's helping to build that foundation for some of the things that are to come. And then the last 3 sessions that will round out the series, that will end off the week, we are looking at ideas like context and image search and some really neat stuff. I'm really looking forward to the things that are to come this week, because there's some just really nifty things, and I love sharing nifty things. I love discovering nifty things and then passing them along. So hopefully this would be something that will bring something of value to you and your searching. So for today, we're going to look at customizing and personalizing searches using web browser and search engine, and taking a look at some of the things, just the tip of the iceberg, the kinds of things that you can explore and that you can find on your own computer in your own way as you move forward. So let's look at this. Some web browser tips for searching. So some of the ideas that I just want to touch on today, we've got users and modes, how or if we are using our web browser's users, or the different modes that a web browser has. And every web browser is different. I'm going to tend to gravitate a little bit towards Google Chrome. I'll slip over to Microsoft Edge a little bit, just because there are a lot of people out there that are using the Windows Microsoft built-in browser. But I'm mostly going to focus on Chrome, because most of internet searching right now, still in 2022, middle of 2022, the statistics are saying that most of the web browsers that we are using are Google Chrome. That's still the big runaway favorite. Apple's Safari is next. I'm not going to do anything with Safari today. But a lot of these ideas, you're going to have to maybe search for, where do I find that? Or maybe even literally do an internet search to find, okay, is there place that shows me exactly how to do this in my favorite browser, if you use something different. But a lot of these are really common concepts that you are going to see in most, if not all, browsers. So this idea of users and the different modes that are available, we're going to take a little look at that. Another common concept, start pages. We're going to take a look at that and what that refers to and how that relates to our experience as searchers on the internet. On our quest for knowledge, what does start page have to do with it? And then the idea of where searching history and controlling or clearing that out, what that can afford us. So users and modes. So users and modes, these kinds of ideas, they actually come into the idea of web browsers as well as search engines. Sometimes with Google in particular, because Google Chrome, rather, in particular, Google Chrome and Google Search are like this. They are meant to work together. I don't know if it's fair to say they were designed to work together. I like to think that they were given that kind of care, that they were designed to work together, but they are meant to work together. And so with Google Chrome and Google, the search engine, what we are seeing is that you can log into one and be logged into both. You can be a user specifically using Google Search, but also have it be tied in with the same account and everything like that, tied into what you would use with your Google search engine. With your web browser, Chrome web browser. They're so interconnected that even in my brain trying to say the sentence, they get flipped around and get interconnected. So there is that relationship. You can have your Google account, log in on your web browser, and then also be logged in your search engine. And there's some kind of cohesiveness and thing that is working there together. But they also can be separate things. Even with Google Chrome and Google Search, you can keep them separate, you can make them separate, you can mix and match between all sorts of things. We're not going to get into that very deeply, but I am going to introduce you to that idea if it's new to you, or refresh your mind on it so that you can, oh yeah, I can, have that moment of aha, right, and that would solve this problem because I've remembered now that I can approach something this way. So the idea being that you can log in with a specific user. You maybe hear it called profile. You have a profile for your web browser. So then this way you have different users that are able to make use and keep their things separate, keep their data separate. It allows us to save the personal settings. Another thing that happens with, especially again with Google Chrome, Google products, but not only, there are ways that this also can allow us with some browsers and some users and some things to sync our settings across devices. So you can log into the same account, but I do this a lot. This is one of the things that I've always appreciated about Google. And you see it in other things, but you see it a lot. I've been doing this with Google for a really long time. Before I was even much of a Mac user, I was doing this. Part of what's happening is you're able to, have stuff stored in the cloud, basically, is what it comes down to. You have stuff stored so that when you log in one place, all of those settings, whether they're search settings or appearance preferences or whatever, all of your bookmarks from browsing that you've done in past searches, you're able to log onto one computer and use that same profile there as you are on a computer that you maybe use at the office or that you use on your phone or something like that. And it just allows you to sync everything and keep stuff together, or just allows you to just use the same settings instead of having to set it 17 different times because you've just changed computers again, or because you've refreshed this, or you've reinstalled that, or whatever. So these things can be really nice. But let's talk about this idea of not just you being logged in as one person with your special settings that you can take around with you different places. Let's talk about the idea of leveraging having multiple profiles or multiple users to be able to help to be able to help you, to help your whole search experience. So one of the things, and probably the most obvious thing, and probably the reason it was thought up in the first place, is the idea of having multiple people being able to use the same device. So last week, I believe in Friday's session on day 4, we talked about the idea of, very briefly touched on the idea that, well, maybe someone's going to use your computer and they're going to do a search and they're searching for something and they're going to search for something that you wouldn't have searched for. Not necessarily something bad, but just something different. And that does affect in some way your search history, and then the way that search algorithms maybe respond to you, or the way that things are being presented to you, like your ads and stuff. All of a sudden you're seeing all sorts of ads for fishing rods because your friend looked up something about fishing rods on your computer. So we talked about this kind of thing, and a little bit of ways you get around this. We specifically, actually, I mentioned you could just bring up a quick private browser, private window, incognito mode, whatever you want to call it. And then that just does that real quick. Well, another way around it, that's a bit more of a robust way, is the idea of being able to have multiple users or multiple profiles. This allows you to have a couple different people maybe use the same computer and be able to have their own settings and their own things and their own search history, but it is kept separate. So my buddy can look up all the fishing rod stuff that he wants, and I'm not going to see that on my computer, but the next time he needs to do something on my computer again, he can log in to, not into a different user on my computer, but a different user on my web browser, so that everything that they're doing while using my web browser is contained, is something related to them and what they're doing. Especially that's important if you're finding that that is something that's happening a lot. So maybe it's a spouse, a friend, a partner, a child, keep it separate. The only thing is your brain just has to remember just enough to, oh yeah, I should flip who's using this computer now, who's using this web browser session now. So it's not foolproof because we have to remember to do that step, but it's there and it works really well when we remember to use it. Having these multiple users or profiles can be also helpful just for me as an individual, you as an individual, because we find ourselves operating in different contexts. So if you're using your computer for personal stuff, if you're using your computer also for some work stuff, and you're using your computer for certain kinds of things, you can actually have different profiles for each thing. I'm not actually doing this with my web browser, but what I do know that I work in different contexts. I have personal stuff. I have work stuff like foundational things. I have work stuff occasionally for other things. I have school. I am a student right now. So what really makes me think about multiple contexts is the fact that I have multiple Gmail accounts that have multiple Google Drives that help separate everything. And I could be doing, or you could be doing the same thing with contexts in your life, with not even just different Google accounts, although that might work for you, but with different profiles. Just simple. You don't need to have 3 different email addresses. You could have personal, work, school profiles, or volunteer, work, personal. You might want to have one for shopping. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. It's only limited by your imagination of what would actually be helpful for you. What is it that you need to keep separated? You need to be in this mode and this mode. You don't want things mixing. There are ways to work with that. On a similar note to contexts, but I wanted to draw it out as its own idea. You can also use a profile or a separate user for experimenting or testing. And that can be useful. I think like this because I come from a software testing background. I'm also super curious and will just try things sometimes. And I often do it at my own peril because um, I'm just doing it on my main browser, and all these other things are happening. And sometimes it would probably be really smart for me to just throw up another profile that I just do, and then I can clean out and I can destroy, and then I can create another one. It's not necessarily a long-term thing, but something that separates everything and is disposable. Something that, it can go away, and then I can make a new one the next time I need to try something out or check something out. So there we have that. Okay. We are going to just deal with some of these wonderful, wonderful bots. Love bots, don't we? What the deal is with that. I don't understand the internet. All the good things, and then there's all the crummy things. But all the good things are still worth it, so we press on. Okay. So before I get on to this with the guest mode, let's just flip and look at something relating to this. Let's give you an example. So this is, let me just double check that we can see it. This is there we go. My screen with, right now, because I have multiple profiles, I believe what's happening with Google Chrome, it's popping up when I open up Google Chrome, it's popping up saying, hey, you have multiple profiles. Who is this? So this is great. This is great for the moment that I was talking about a few minutes ago, where it's like the hardest part about having the multiple profiles or multiple users for a web browser is remembering to switch them, right? Using it is easy. Remembering to switch because your context just changed, or your friend who's fascinated by fishing poles wants to start searching on your computer for fishing poles, make them a profile, have your own profile. And how Chrome handles it is you have the option. This doesn't have to show up. There's a little option down here in the bottom left, on the right, sorry. It's Monday. The bottom right, that allows me to turn this off. But honestly, if your browser does this, you want to keep it here so that you remember to use it. It is there for you. So we've got my personal one here. That's me. Woohoo! And FT is foundational things. So that's the one that I'm using right now for anything that I'm doing in these sessions to demonstrate with Chrome. The other thing I'll point out right here, there was a little bit of a spoiler because I flipped ahead to the next slide. Guest mode is also an option. So we'll talk specifically about what that is. But that's a nifty thing to have pop up too, because, maybe it's just a one-off. Maybe it's just someone happens to pop by. Oh, can I take a quick look? Whatever. Sure. Open up a brand new Google Chrome instance, I guess. My hesitation there is just I tend to keep browsers open. And so this really is relying on the idea of that it's starting fresh. So it isn't going to come up just because we open a new window. There are ways of changing it. But this interface is coming up for Google Chrome because I've started it brand new. I've launched Chrome brand new, and it's saying, hey, who is this? Who are you? So if my fishing buddy came over, I don't really have a fishing buddy, but that's the example I'm running with today. Maybe they already have an account, and then see, you can sync across all devices and all the stuff, and it gives that option. So if they already had a profile that they're just carrying around with them, cool. Let them sign in with their own account. They can sign out later if they don't want, the opportunity for you to mess their stuff up accidentally. That's, one of those things you do have to think about. Or continue without an account. You can go right ahead and start, see this even kind of work, personal kids. So the idea of the profile can be about context and not specifically a person. Then you can get all pretty and pick colors and things. I'm not actually going to create one of those now, but you can see how that's just a nice wizard that just steps through, similar to hopefully other things that you've seen. But I'm going to go to the middle one, foundational things. And then that brings me up with my settings and things like that. This here, which seems awfully small today. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me. This here, this little icon, this is why it allows at some point in the setup, it allows you to actually specify something visual that's going to clue you in to the idea of who it is. What session are we in? So I can be in a session with foundational things, and then I can actually have another one open that I can have another one open that allows me to do both at the same time. Now that's difficult because then my brain has to be able to know, which one am I using if I'm going to flip back and forth. So it's a little bit dangerous, but because it's dangerous, I would recommend just sticking to one at a time if you can, because then you're not going to get yourself all confused. And by dangerous, I mean it's just easy to mix up. I don't really mean danger. So, okay, what's happening here? Interesting note. My foundational things context, my profile here, this is not signed in any way. I don't actually have anything with this being tied to an email address. I have all sorts of email addresses, but I don't even need to do that. I don't have it connected to anything other than I've named it and I said, this is a new thing I want to track separately. So it says it's not signed in. It's actually not syncing. There's nowhere else I'm using this. So I really don't care about that. But I could. If I wanted to care, I could set all that up. I could turn on sync. I could, whatever. But I don't need to. So I'm not going to. This is also where you can switch. This is where you can add again. If you don't have the thing popping up, and when you only have one user, it definitely does not pop up. So when you're just using it default, you've just started using Google Chrome, or you've been using Google Chrome and you've never done this before, it's just going to bring you into Google Chrome. It's not going to say, who are you? It's just going to assume that you know. But as soon as it starts mixing in a second profile or more, it's going to want to, prompt you for that. So if you say, I don't want to see that window, this doesn't happen that often, I really don't care. It's only for every so often when my family member comes over and needs to use this, then fine. So this is where you would find this. You would come in here and, so I would log in as me. Or this is where you would throw it into guest mode because just, random person has stopped by, hopefully that, and they need to do something, search something up, and you want to be able to be a good host and let them do that. But you want it to be totally something that does not stay on your computer whatsoever, and doesn't need to have any history of it. So we have guest. This is where you can also add something. So the first time your nephew comes over and needs to do something, and he's going to come over a lot, you're going to create him his own profile. That would work. We've also got settings here, and then that brings us to here and allows you to manage profiles, right? So if we definitely need this still, so I'm not going to delete it. But if we don't need this profile, we can delete it. So again, I was talking about if you create things that are for test purposes and you're done with it and you just want to start clean the next time you want to test something in a clean browser environment, there you go. Need to add something new, that's fine. So if this goes away, that's fine. I'll still be able to get back to it. Okay. So that's how you do that. That's where that's at. Okay. Why does this all matter? This is about managing our search information. This is where it all ties in, using, in this case, Google Chrome to be able to do that. Now, this is an interesting thing. I learned this thanks to you, thanks to me needing to prepare this for somebody else. This is the tab that has come up from Google. And the reason it's come up is because right now for Chrome, Google is the default search engine. And last week on day 4, we looked at this. We looked at how to change it so that you could search a different search engine by default and all this. We can see here that it's Google. This is the tab that comes up when we create a new tab. It's going to bring up a new, by default, it's going to bring up the tab that relates to the search engine. So notice how this is new tab, new tab. If we hover over there, it's the address is new tab, Chrome : / new tab. All right, what's significant about that? The thing I want to draw attention to here is that this is not the Google page. This is Chrome specific. This is the web browser page for searching. It's great. It looks a lot like Google. It has links to the same thing. But here's one hint that this is Chrome specific. Customize Chrome, bottom right-hand corner. This is, we have these default shortcuts here. And I think this is based on stuff I've done. I haven't cleared out my history from last time. But this looks different than if I went in here and did a search like Dairy Queen. Right? It's great. But what is that? That's Google. That's different than this page. Looks awful lot alike, right? This to this. I feel like I'm at the eye doctor's. Better or worse? This or this? So they look very similar, and they're meant to look very similar. But if you start to look at this as google.com, google.ca would be similar. We've got actual buttons here. We've got settings for Chrome. We've got another sign-in thing. This is a sign-in for the search engine. Okay, I'm not signed in with the search engine. I don't think I usually am privately. I'm trying to think, what do I do personally? I'll get back to you on that one. I'll answer my own question next time. But we have, there's a difference here. So, and if I change, a quick review from last time, if I go into settings and I go into default search engine and I change this here, this is a cool thing. New tab here, just watch this. Watch what happens. I change this to Bing. This flipped to Bing. The new Chrome, the new tab is now going to Bing. If I create a new tab, it goes to Bing. If I go back to settings here and I change it, it's because it's the start page. It's the new tab page. So if I switch that, it's switched back. It says new tab, but now it's searching Yahoo. It doesn't look the same. That looks like that interface is a little bit messed up. That's not me doing anything wrong. That's just not a good fit. If I go to DuckDuckGo, DuckDuckGo. Okay, interesting. So this is distinct to Chrome, but I think everything has its own nuances and does something like this. They have a way to do a setting that gives you a start page. So these are start pages. And then these ones in particular, this one I just created this new tab. This is also going to the start page every time. So some browsers are going to actually have a distinction between that. I'm getting ahead of my notes here, but it's okay. You'd rather probably see things than have me talk about them all the time anyway. So what else is happening in here? On startup. So these are kind of your options. The thing is that when we do startup pages, let me just flip here to, I haven't done guest mode. Let's come back to guest mode. I'm totally out of order here. Start pages. This is what I'm talking about right now. Okay, start pages. The thing with start pages is that they're useful because when we're using the internet, when we're using our web browser, we're often there to search. It's not the only way we use it, but a lot of the time, I know for me, it's still like the primary way I use it. I probably do way more searching than I do anything else. So it's often the place where we start from. So you can customize your local start page to be it does it by default, obviously. Whatever is happening with the search, the default search. And then there are other things that you can do. Maybe with some browsers, it's not so easy to do it with Google Chrome for some reason. I was trying it. With some browsers, you can set a very specific go to this website. When I start my web browser, go to this website. Or when I create a new tab, go to this website. And so if you dig enough, or I think with Google you can do it, but you have to get an extension. Extensions are just things that literally extend functionality on something. So in this case, on a web browser. So if you get a Google Chrome extension that allows you to have your start page be any website you want, if that's what's necessary. I couldn't find that setting right away. If you can do that, then cool. That's what you want to do. You can also do things that configure the actual start page of a search engine. So why does this matter? In a lot of ways, maybe it doesn't. We just tend to just go do the things. But sometimes, especially if you find you're searching or there's patterns that you do, and you're always doing like 2 steps before you get to do a search, there may be ways to say, oh, well, if I just make the search page default to the thing that I do first, then that saves me 2 steps. It's an option. Let's go backwards here and see what I was missing, because I jumped there. All right, guest mode. Let's talk quickly about guest mode. So when that window popped up, that window on starting up Google Chrome and said, hey, you got multiple profiles. Who are you? And then in the bottom left-hand corner, it had guest mode. So guest mode is kind of the opposite of the idea of having profiles, from the angle that the reason we have profiles is usually because we're trying to organize our data so that we are keeping it separate. We want people to be able to have all their bookmarks and their search history and things, but I want you to have yours over here on my same computer, and I want to have mine over here on my same computer, right? And we want them to be able to be separate. You can do your thing when you're using this computer, and I can do my thing, and that's great. So that's profiles. That's users, keeping people in their lane, or your contexts in your lane. This is work, this is personal, this is school. Okay. So guest mode sounds the same, but it works on the opposite principle. It's the idea that is the same is I'm keeping something separate. You're coming in, you're probably never going to use my computer again, until the next time you visit, and maybe you're not going to visit for another year to need my computer when you come over. Fine. But it doesn't really warrant you having a profile on my computer, on my web browser. So you're just going to stop by. Oh, I just need to do a quick search before I continue on my trip or something. Okay, cool. Guest mode. And what guest mode does is it keeps it separate from all of the stuff on my computer, all the profiles, all my own personal stuff, but it also doesn't give the guest any access to anything else. So this is an interesting difference. It doesn't save anything. It doesn't store anything. This is where it's opposite, right? It's not tracking anything that the guest user has done on my computer. It's not saving any of those results or those patterns. And it's not altering anything, which is okay. That's cool. But it's interesting because it also doesn't have access to anything. So this is where it's a little bit different than what we talked about on day 4. I mentioned about going into private or incognito mode and keeping things separate. If someone needs to just pop on and do something, and one thing that you can do is you can slip into private mode, and then it's not going to mess with saving any of those search results or those browsing results. But what it doesn't do is it's still logged in as that profile user. So when I flip into private mode, because I don't want something to be tracked, because I'm searching on something that I don't want to have affect the rest of my, I'm looking for fishing rods, but I don't want to have 50,000 fishing rod things, because this is a one-off search. I'm just doing it for my friend. And I'm looking this up, but I'm still logged in as, I'm still working in my profile. I still have access to all of my browsing history. I still have access to my bookmarks. I'm still able to save a bookmark. I can find like this awesome link that I want to save, so I can send to my friend. But I don't necessarily want it in my search history. And so instead of trying to figure out how to delete those individual things, I can just like not have it save it in the first place. But when I'm in private or incognito mode, I can still see all my own stuff. So you can see how being in guest mode is an advantage, because you got someone on your computer that doesn't need access to your bookmarks, doesn't need access to your search history, doesn't need access to your passwords, doesn't, like it just, they don't have access to anything, and they don't alter anything, and they don't add anything, and they can't save anything. They can't create new bookmarks. It's really just, hey, come in and use this and search, do your thing, look up the Dairy Queen website and the menu before you go. Cool. That's great. But you don't see anything else. So it's a privacy on kind of both sides thing, right? I don't know what they've searched. It doesn't affect my results, but it also is not, they aren't seeing anything else. Maybe it's not a big deal for a lot of people. I guess in one way it's not really a big deal for me, but one thing that is really helpful is this idea of how we manage our data, how we manage our search results, because everything seems to be so flowy and interconnected. And so if there are ways to keep stuff separate, to make it more meaningful for you, when you do have something that's coming back to you as a result or as an ad or whatever, and have it actually be more relevant, then this is one strategy that kind of has a little bit more of a hygienic kind of way. It keeps things cleaner, right? So yeah, I think that's what I just said. So that's interesting. All right, user specific settings. So still talking about search engines, not search engines. I just read search engine on the screen. Talking about our web browsers and doing configuration specific, or doing maintenance or customization specific to the web browser that we're logged into, as our profile setting, our profile specific setting, whichever language you want to use. So a little bit today, a little bit in day 4, we talked about setting the default search engine. I've already actually changed that once with that one example. Start page, tweaking that. So we've looked at that. Search history. So the idea of having it be there in the first place, but then also the idea of being able to maintain it and clear it out. The idea of bookmarks. I don't know who uses bookmarks. I obsessively use them, but I don't manage them very well. That is a downfall of bookmarks. But bookmarks, actually, this is something that I should maybe talk about tomorrow. Bookmarks, they're great because like they're the idea of you found something in search and you want to keep it because you need to refer back to it. Makes sense, right? And you can be really elaborate. I've tried all sorts of different things and have failed miserably. You can be really elaborate at trying to manage, having folders and topics and all sorts of things for how you organize stuff. But we should look at Bookmark Manager tomorrow because, again, it's something specific to the web browser, but it also is specific to search. It's specific to search because it's the result. And that's the whole point. It's the whole point. All right. So, Bookmark Manager. So we'll look at that. But search history. So it depends on your goals and your purposes for searching. And there are different strategies here as a result, right? So sometimes we search and we want to be able to find stuff later. There are times where I have actually cleared my search history, and then I've almost immediately regretted it because there was something that I was looking for that just there was something that I was looking for that just it was hidden in that search history somewhere, and I could have found it if I hadn't deleted the search history. So, that's frustrating. Um, that's why I bookmark things so much. Whether I find it later or not in my bookmarks, we'll talk about that tomorrow. But um, there are other strategies here. You can selectively want to remove search history because maybe you didn't remember to go into private mode and you're like, oh, I just searched for these fishing rods. And now all the ads are going to come up about fishing rods. And you were just trying to get a nice present for your dad or something like that, right? Like that's it. And, you know, so what can you do? Well, one of the things you can do is say, well, for the last hour, I was doing this and I can delete my search history from last hour. So that's always an option. Another thing that you can look at here is the idea of how could you use a profile, maybe separating your shopping activities. So like doing shopping and then browsing for items to purchase. You could actually have a shopping profile and then do all your shopping and say, yeah, but I don't want Google to keep making these suggestions and track everything and mention everything about things based on stuff I've searched in the past. So you can clear your search history, but only for that profile. That's a strategy where you can start to see how you can piece a couple of these ideas together with clearing history, with having a separate profile. It depends how you work. It depends how you think. It depends, what actually is helpful for you. And sometimes we need to clear search history because there are weird browser issues. I don't have a whole lot of problems with this as a Mac user, although I know it can happen. I've had a number of times where I've had problems with this, or had people in my family that have had problems with their Windows browser going wacky. Internet Explorer or Edge in particular come to mind. It just comes with the territory. And sometimes the way to help resolve some of these things is to clear out all the history, and that's part of that whole journey. So it's important to know how to do this. So let's take a quick look. So I'm still in settings here. If I wasn't in settings, I would go to the menu. We'll do this one more time. Settings. Also, I'm going to mention this little guy here. If you're not a Mac user, that just looks really weird for you. That little symbol there is the command key. So command comma is the keyboard shortcut. And it probably means that it would be control comma for Windows. But it should tell you what it is. Google's really nice, really good at this, showing the keyboard shortcuts. I love keyboard shortcuts. Don't use them enough, but I find them awesome. So that's another way. You don't always have to go there. So I'll do it right now. I'll do the command key and the comma, and then open up a tab. I just did it. There it is. So what we're here to do, history. So privacy and security is the Google name for getting into search history. So there's clear browsing data, there's cookies, and I'm not going to get into these things, what they all are, but sometimes we just need to get rid of this stuff. And the big thing here, the helpful thing here, is if you go under clear browsing data, make a note that clicking this is just a menu option that's going to take you into the menu that gives you more options. We've got this little arrow here, this caret arrow, that's leading us to the next step. This isn't me. I press this and it clears all my browser data. No, it brings me to an interface. The basic one gives me some choices, tries to explain stuff. This is pretty clear because I cleared this before the session on for day 4. And so this is only history that's from day 4 and a little bit of some stuff that I've done today, getting ready for day 5. So this isn't showing very much. It's not a great loss for me if I clear this out. But you can see that there's some options here. Advanced gets a whole lot more specific. Maybe you just want to get rid of the tracking cookies. Maybe, yeah. A lot of these are the same, but then it gets into some nittier grittier stuff. And yeah, so things just from the last hour or things from the last, for me, it won't look any different. Last hour won't take away very much, and last 7 days will take away everything. So, but that's what we do, clear data. And then that literally would get rid of all the things. So see here, I did a Dairy Queen search. If I start to type Dairy Queen, it's not even suggesting it as a recent thing. It actually did there because Dairy Queen is an awesome thing to look up. But I should have done it before. I should have shown you both ways. Let's do it again. I'll go Dairy Queen, Toronto. Okay, so there's Dairy Queen Toronto that's come up. If I go over here, before I delete it again, see, as soon as I type the D, do it again. See, it came up and it said, hey, you searched this recently. So you see how this icon's a little bit different. This is showing things that have been searched for. And this is showing search suggestions based on what people search, not just you. Okay, what are common searches? And there's some browsers and some things that allow you to turn that off, the suggestions as well, popular searches. So now, yeah, that's what we did before. So we'll go do the thing all the way through, get rid of everything, clear the data, come back here, dairy. Okay, see, I'm back to where I was before. So that's where you do that. That's how you do that. Let's come over to the Windows world. So this is the start page for Windows, the default right now, and it's kind of the Bing, same kind of thing. This is a new tab. This is a start page. See how it says new tab? They follow much the same pattern. This is a little bit different. I have this extremely simplified. It's a very, very busy website, and it was bothering me. So I've got a page layout called focused. So this is one of those search configurations that you can do that's specific to Edge, where they offer these layouts, and going into these guys, these are going to show us all sorts of things about what's going on in the news, and it's much more graphic, and it's much more, what's all happening in the world. And yeah, sometimes it's just too much. I like focused, like, oh, let's get rid of that. There's a lot going on there, a lot more than I want to deal with when all I want to do is search on my homepage. Don't want to see all the news. I don't want to see all the stuff. So there's almost always configuration settings for these things. So if you're looking at something, there's something that you don't like, then you can do something about it usually. So the same with going into Bing. If you're using it as web browser, there's all this stuff. And I'm pretty sure I've already messed with some of these settings. So yeah, I got rid of news and interests, just so that wasn't just always in my face all the time. So that's specifically, we'll come back to that. I'll leave that tab open. So why did I come here? I came here. Settings. Yeah, right. So web browser. I got lost there for a minute. It's kind of, I think meta is the right word. It's kind of meta, right? You're dealing with search engines, and you're having start pages that are serving search engines with settings that are search engine settings, and then settings. Oh, yeah. So I got lost there for a second. I was playing around with this setting. This is a setting for the start page. Over here, these were settings for the search engine, but I wanted settings for the web browser. So that's coming here. I also don't use this very much, so I get lost every time I'm doing stuff with I get lost every time I'm doing stuff with Windows for the first little bit. Yeah, the bots are busy today. Every time I'm looking over here, it's because something's happening in the chat. And today, it's the bots. Oh, the bots. Okay. So, settings. Here we are. So that's going to bring us to Edge settings. So I'm by default profile 1. I don't have another profile here. Don't need it. And at least right now I don't. So we've got privacy, search, and services. And you can scroll down, and here you can see an area dedicated to clearing browser data. Okay, so these things are here. Last time, I forget what I was trying to do. Oh, search engine. I actually needed to use their search bar to find the search engine default settings. There's all sorts of things in here. These are settings specific to the way the web browser works again, right? So that affects your search experience. Then, it isn't just all about, what's a pretty color or this or that. That's important too. You have to enjoy your search. And if you're finding the blindingly white screen is driving you nuts, excuse me, then you can change it. It affects your search experience. I'm just going to get a sip of water. All right. Let's head back to... All right. I think this is actually, as my voice is leaving me, this is actually a good place to stop for today. So tomorrow we're going to continue on into advanced search recap and talking about filters, talking more about the customization specifically available at the search engine level. We've done it a little bit, touched on it just a tiny little bit, but there's all sorts of cool stuff. And I want to get into this with respect to it's like my brain is stuck. I hate that. Location and customization based on region and location. So that's all going to fall in really naturally if I stop here and then return us to filtering and search engine settings and things like that tomorrow, and bookmark manager, if I remember. I'll get that in. I'll fit that in. It's worth mentioning, so maybe I'll just lead with that tomorrow and make sure I don't miss it. So what have we covered? We haven't covered all of the stuff on this summary slide, but there are lots of ways. This is why it's taken so long. And the more I explore and the more I trip over stuff, the more I'm reminded of how many different things we've got going on. There are lots of ways to customize and tailor your searching experience to your preferences and your needs. So you can find that with web browsers, and that's mostly what we were focused on. We were focused on the web browser, being able to customize, the idea of having different profiles or using different modes, being able to work with the web browser as a tool for helping you to search. One thing I didn't mention is that a number of these search engines also actually have desktop applications that are just dedicated to search. I don't know what the value of that is really. If you're somebody that loves using a desktop app for searching, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to know more. I've never really been into that. So, mention in the comments or send me an email at info@foundationalthings.com and tell me your story about why you love using desktop apps for search. But I know Google has one. I know Bing has one. I know that even on our mobile phones, you can just, search on a Google app instead of going to the web browser and using Google. I don't know. I'd love to know from somebody who does that all the time, if it's just because it's what you do and what you're used to, or if there's some advantage. That'd be really cool to know. Search engines themselves can be customized We talked about it, but we really didn't get into a whole lot. Um, but in the same way you can do with the web browsers, you can log in and you can save and you can sync. I'm not demonstrating that very much, um, but I think it's if it's something that you want to know more about, let me know in the comments. And if I don't get it in the live series, I'll come back to it in a standalone video separate from the series. But I think the concept of logging in is kind of pretty broadly something that people are comfortable with, just because we're doing that with a lot of other stuff. But the advantage of doing it is that you're able to save those customizations and you can sync those settings, and that's kind of fun, being able to do that. That can be a really powerful thing to know that you can do. And this is one of those things we did not touch on today. So something that we can talk about in tomorrow's session in day 6 is how filters can be used on search results. And that's something that ties into looking at the search engine side of things. So we'll dig back into that tomorrow. Along with continuing this journey with customizing and personalizing searches, we're going to be looking at location localization and what we're doing there. All right. In the meantime, I encourage you to go check out the free companion guide to Searching Made Easier. I put it together just for you. It's available. The link is in the description, as well as this lovely bit.ly link that makes it easy to get to, easy to find. So Searching Made Easier, it's a good reference, a quick reference, and it also digs into some specifics about how we use our search operators and gives some case studies. If you want to know what's going on with foundational things, you want to know when the next live series is, or when the next video gets posted, things like that. What's the news? What's the scoop? Reminder of checking stuff out. You can join this reminder email list, and I will make sure that you know what is happening here with foundational things and with me. Don't forget to check out our other videos on the YouTube channel. There's quite a library building up, and we also have the videos before this from days 1 through 4 for this teaching series of Find What You're Looking For. This one will be up later today, and it will be fully available by tomorrow, as YouTube does its magic. It's a whole new world on this side of YouTube, let me tell you. And that's it. That is everything for today. So thank you so much. I know we had a live viewer for a little bit, and it's so cool. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. Reach out to me personally, whatever it is that works for you. If you're able to ask a question during the series, I will answer the question during the series. And I look forward to hearing from you. So thanks so much. Have a great day, and look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. So take care.